everybody, and welcome to Rocky and Derrick Show. If you like our interviews, please visit our website, rockyandderrick.com, to look at our upcoming events and visit our photo and video gallery. Today, we're interviewing Mr. Chris, who does...
I am a geotechnical engineer.
That's different from what Nate told me. But.
What is your job title?
My job title is principal, and I'm in charge of all the operations in North Carolina for our company called Geo Engineers.
That was easier than I thought.
What do geotechnical engineers do?
So geotechnical engineers are part of civil engineers, and there are 5 different categories of civil engineers, which you may have heard of. One is a structural engineer, and they kind of have hold the buildings up, and they do steel and concrete. And another is a traffic engineer, and they do the city lights and the highways. There's an environmental engineer that's part of civil engineering, and they make sure that the stuff in the ground is safe. And am I missing one? And geotechnical engineers, which I am, and they do a lot of soil mechanics. And the geotechnical engineers are kind of a combination of geologist, you've heard of a geologist, and an engineer. So we look at soil mechanics, and then we look at soil mechanics when buildings are being built, when roads are being built, when bridges are being built, any sort of structures that are on top of that. We kind of look under the ground and provide recommendations to other engineers to provide the foundation recommendations.
How long have you been working there?
I've been working at Geo-Hydro Engineers for 6.5 years. So I've been a geotechnical engineer for probably 18 years.
How much do you make?
The farther you go and the more expertise you have, the more money you can make. So coming out of school, coming out of school and without any experience, you'll make a pretty good living. And then the more experience you have, the better living you can make.
Do you travel?
I do. I don't travel a lot, but I travel within North Carolina a lot. Not really much outside of North Carolina.
What is the biggest project you've done?
Let's see. We did a big wastewater treatment plant. No, it was a water treatment plant in Winston-Salem, and that's probably the biggest job that I've ever done. But 2 years ago, we worked. Actually, it was 4 years ago. We started a project at Oak Grove High School, which is in Davidson County, and Geo-Hydro Engineers did all the geotechnical engineering. And then when the building's being built, we did all the material testing. So when the building's being built, we'll have guys out there and girls out there to look at the concrete that's being, and so we'll take a sample of the concrete, see if it meets the design strength. We took a look at the soil when they were compacting the soil. We took a look at the structural beams when they put up the beams, and the welding and the bolts. A lot of these very small details that you have to make a building work. Our company kind of comes in and will provide what's called third-party inspections, really just to make sure that it's being built according to what one engineer had really said.
Did you go to school for this?
I did. I went to a number of schools. For the engineering degree, I ended up going to University of North Carolina, Charlotte, which is a 4-year degree. You go for an engineer like myself, you end up going to school for 4 years, then you'll get out of school, and then you get a job. And then you take that job and you have to work 4 years under a professional engineer. So you have to kind of intern under the professional engineer. And after that 4 years, you can actually then you have to take another test. And if you pass that test, you become what's called a professional engineer. And so I have a stamp, and when the plans come through, I get the stamp and I get to put my name on it. So it takes a long time. So it takes eight years to go through the whole thing. It's a long time, isn't it?
So you went to UNCC,
Yes.
but you like NC State.
I did. I took a long, winding road in my education. I ended up getting a history degree from NC State. So really out of high school, I went to NC State. And that's who I kind of like, and that's who I pull for in football and basketball. Because that's my first love, is NC State.
I was confused for a second.
How long did it take you to complete the biggest project you ever had?
That was probably Oak Grove High School, which is in Davidson County, kind of near High Point. And we started working on that project 4 years ago. That we're still working on it today, and we'll probably complete that in a month or two. So it was almost 4 years that we've been working on that project, which is a long time, huh? But it's a big high school. It's a big high school.
So you just make sure the foundation is right, and then you're done with it?
Yeah, sometimes we're done with it. So a lot of the geotechnical engineers, kind of really the simplest way to put it is we find out how much the building's going to settle. All building's going to settle. So you have construction and you have this big load and it's going to settle some. You can't help that because you're going to be on Earth and it's going to compress down a certain bit. And what we do is we try to estimate how much it's going to compress down and to see if that's going to be okay for that building. There are some buildings that can have a whole lot of settlement. There's other buildings that can have really a small amount. So we have to decide what the soil is like below, and then we have to see what you're going to put on top of it. And then we go back to the structural engineer and say, hey, we estimate a half an inch of settlement, about that much. Or we say an inch of settlement. Or if we say 3 inches of settlement. And he may go, nope, I need to have it a half an inch. And so, okay, well, if you need to have it a half an inch, we'll provide some design recommendations to reduce those settlements.
Here comes the big one. What is the difference between foundation engineering and soil mechanics?
Yeah. So I think that soil mechanics is part of the foundation engineering. So the soil mechanics is how different soil particles react from loading. So around, if you think of soil is comprised of silt, sand, or clay. So if you think of the beach and the sand out of the beach, right? And then that has certain properties. And then if you think of clay and silt, which is kind of what we have here in Greensboro, it's kind of red. You can put it in a ball. Have you ever done that and made like cakes out there? So you have to take those properties of the soil mechanics, and then you have to turn those into what you're going to build. And that probably comes into the foundation engineering side of it. And so you have to kind of bridge those two things together to make sure that the building is going to be safe for people to live in.
When you were little, did you always want to engineer?
No. I didn't know what I wanted to do. It wasn't until I was probably in my mid-20s that I discovered that I wanted to be an engineer. I always kind of liked to do things and liked to do things with my hands and things, but I never really knew what engineering was until probably early 20s. And then I started reading about it and figuring out kind of what I wanted to do with my life. And then in my mid-20s, I went back to school. And I went back to school for civil engineering. And then when I did that, you had to pick which kind of category of civil engineering that you wanted to do. And I thought the geotechnical engineering was the coolest one of the two. So I have a pair of boots in my car, and I drive out to construction sites, and I put my boots on, and I go out, and I walk in the mud, and I walk in the dirt. And I like that. I like being outside. And I like going to construction sites and seeing really things being built. we also work with like really big machinery, really big track hose and really big earth moving machinery. And I kind of like that. I think that's kind of cool to do that. So it really wasn't until kind of the 20s that I'd said, oh, that's a possibility that I could actually be a geotechnical engineer, and started looking at, see what requirements I needed. You needed to do a lot of math. So I went back to school and studied math, studied physics, studied science, and then got out a job and been working ever since.
You built a fence at the beginning of the summer. Did you have to like do the soil foundation thingy for that?
No, I did not do that. And usually you don't, because a fence is really small. And the load on a fence, if you think of what a fence consists of, it's just a piece of wood, right? A 4x4 that you kind of put into the ground. And there's no really load on that. But if you think about that, and you think about what load is going to be on there, you think about wind load, right? And so if the wind's blowing against a fence, if that's a whole lot of area that the wind can kind of push against it. So really, when you're looking at a fence and the design, it's really you need that embedment of there in order for that post for not to fall over. But it's not going to sink down because it's so small. Does that make sense? Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to kids?
I would say study hard. I don't think it's that important to figure out exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life right now, but keep an open mind and work really hard. So when I went to school, I'm not a student that can get good grades right off the bat without working. I'm the kind of student that you have to work really hard. And every grade that I had, whether it's A or B or C, I really had to earn that. And I really had to work really hard, especially in math. Is you have to go in there and you have to do the work. And so that's what I would say is when you go through school, take it serious and then work really hard. And then you can keep your options open, you know, and to see what interests you. So I like going out and getting muddy and kind of getting dirty, you know, and not being in office all the time. There's other people that would hate that and would be tortured to go out there and get dirty and muddy. And so that job is not for them, but this job is for me. So find what you want to do, but keep an open mind in when you're doing it.
Well, that's all for now. Make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and if you want to become a sponsor, go on our website, rockyandderrickshow.com. Goodbye.